I will never forget that eerie night in the mountains. We had barely escaped the fiery destruction of Sodom, and the stench of smoke and death still clung to our clothes as we took refuge in a cave. The city we had once called home was nothing but ash behind us. But little did I know, it wasn't just the ruins of Sodom we had left behind, it was the innocence of Lot's daughters as well. I was there, hidden in the shadows, a silent observer to what unfolded in that cave. Lot, their father, was broken, exhausted. After losing their mother, turned to salt for looking back, he had nothing left. He had been the man who led them out of that wicked city, but now he lay before them, a defeated shell of who he once was. He trusted them, his daughters, his only family left. But what happened that night was nothing short of a descent into madness. Lot's daughters, they were the ones who started it all. They sat together, whispering in the dim light of the cave, their voices thick with panic and fear. "Our father is old," the elder one said. "And there is no man around to give us children, as if we are the last people on earth. If we do nothing, our family line will end here. We'll be nothing." The younger one, hesitant at first, eventually agreed. Desperation and fear clouded their judgment. In the twisted reasoning of their minds, they convinced themselves that their father was the only option. It wasn't just about survival, it was about control. The city of Sodom may have been destroyed, but its corruption had followed them into the mountains, into the very depths of their souls. I watched as they prepared the wine. Lot drank, unaware, as his daughters coaxed him deeper into intoxication. His mind clouded, his defenses fell. And that's when the elder one made her move. She lay with her father that night, taking what was forbidden. Lot, drunk and unaware, became an instrument in their plan. The next morning, he had no memory of what had happened. He thought the nightmare was over, but it had only begun. The daughters had tasted control, and they weren't finished. The younger daughter followed her sister's lead the very next night, and Lot, again oblivious, became complicit in the unthinkable. I wanted to scream, to stop them, to shake them from their twisted plan, but the darkness in that cave swallowed everything. There was no sound but their whispers, no light but the faint glow of the fire. It was a silence thick with sin, a quiet unraveling of what was left of Lot's family. When it was all over, they were both pregnant, by their own father. The consequences of their actions rippled far beyond that cave. From the elder daughter came Moab, and from the younger, Ammon. The Moabites and the Ammonites, two nations born from this incestuous act, would become enemies of Israel, a thorn in their side for generations to come. Their sin wasn't just a personal violation, it birthed conflict and pain that would haunt the descendants of Abraham for centuries. These daughters, who should have been the hope of Lot's legacy, instead became the root of animosity between their offspring and the people of God. They weren't simply bad girls of the Bible because of a single, twisted act. No, their legacy was far darker. Their actions birthed nations that would stand in opposition to God's people, nations that would war with Israel, leading their descendants astray into idolatry and wickedness. The daughters of Lot, in their desperation, allowed fear to warp their sense of right and wrong. They saw the destruction of Sodom as the end of the world and took matters into their own hands, forsaking all moral boundaries. In their minds, survival was the only goal, and they believed their actions justified. But in their misguided plan, they unleashed consequences far beyond their understanding. It was the way of Sodom that had shaped them. Growing up in a city soaked in sin had dulled their sense of right and wrong. They had witnessed all manner of wickedness in the streets of that city, violence, depravity, indulgence. And though they fled Sodom's flames, Sodom's corruption had already taken root deep within their hearts. They could leave the city, but they couldn't escape its twisted influence. Lot, once a man who had walked with Abraham, was now the father of nations born of sin. His daughter's actions left him shamed, unknowingly the father of children whose very existence was a reminder of the darkness in that cave. Years later, I saw the tribes of Moab and Ammon grow strong, their people defying the God of Israel. Their history, born out of fear, sin, and misguided desperation, echoed through the generations. When Israel marched toward the Promised Land, the Moabites and Ammonites stood in their way, seeking to lead them astray into idolatry. Their legacy of sin continued to infect the world long after that fateful night in the cave. The daughters of Lot didn't just defy their father, they defied God's design for family, for purity, for trust in His provision. Their fear led them to one of the darkest acts of human history, and the consequences of that sin would ripple far beyond their lives. These bad girls sought survival, but in doing so, they etched a legacy of shame and division. You've just uncovered one of the most pivotal stories in our Bad Girls of the Bible series, where we dive deep into the choices that shaped history. Don't let the lesson stop here. Like this video if it gave you a fresh perspective, share it with others who need to hear these powerful truths, and subscribe to follow the rest of the series. Each story will challenge you, inspire you, and strengthen your walk with God. Join us on this journey of faith, where every decision counts.